Bang! Neeves Knives. I'm Jared, and we got the Oz Machine Company Roosevelt here. Now, this one was sent to me by Lavender Pants 86, a brother to the channel. Love him to death. He's been supporting us for a long time. Thank you, man. And he had this one custom made for him. He has one other one as well. Now, these come in so many different options, so the price varies on what you want, what you get, and everything else. So I believe they start right around $550, and then it just goes up from there. So here we got a beautiful stone. I mean, this is a heavy stone wash, but because it's such a heavy stone wash, it's gonna be wear resistant. Like, it's not gonna show scratches or anything like that. When you're cutting, like, you'll notice like debris building up, but once you wipe it off, it's like nothing happened. So, and you can see some of like the old satin finish underneath, which is really cool. Really nice finish. And like I said, you can get these in just about any steel you want. So this particular one is Z-Finit 61 HRC, and you can see the birth date and everything that comes with it, number 143. They come in a really nice case, which is awesome, and a sticker down there. Now, getting into this knife some more. So let's first talk about the fit and finish really quick. So, man, this thing is really nice. I mean, everything's just done, crowned, rounded, and it seems like nothing wasn't touched on it, yet it doesn't go overboard, which I appreciate. It seems like there's just all the areas you want messed with is messed with. So, like, when you put it in your hand and you squeeze it, even before cutting, just putting it in your hand, you can tell designing this knife, the person really thought about how it was going to feel in the hand. I mean, even just this little slope right there, I mean, I know we don't all have the same hand size, but this is going to be comfortable in a lot of people's hands, especially like the average hand size. Even if your hand is a little larger, I think you'll be okay. If you have a little bit of smaller hand, I think you'll still be okay. If you have giant hands, yeah, you're out of luck. But this generous choil area right there, you can get up nice and close to the blade. The jimping is, partially on the blade and on the scales, and it does work. You really lock in with this pinch grip. The thickness and the depth right here is perfect, in my opinion, for this size knife. I don't think I could ask for it to be any slimmer, because it's nice and slim, and I like that, but it's not so slim to where you feel like you're hanging onto a wire or something, or I don't know, like a ruler or something. It's still got a good enough thickness to where you get good leverage. Now, so the ergos are just fantastic, and all these little edges are chamfered around it. It almost, I don't even want to say it feels contoured, but because it doesn't at all. You do notice that it is flat, but in a good way, because all these edges are so rounded that your hand just melts on it. I really like that. Even in like other grips, like pinch grips, not like a reverse grip, I didn't do anything with it like that, but these little pinch grips, utility cut grip, just all the regular grips you would use normal EDC tasks with, it works great. Great. We'll get into the action in 1 second because it's amazing. But the cutting performance, so the geometry is really good. It cuts nice. I measured this one in particular right around 12 thousandths behind the edge, 10 to 12 thousandths behind the edge, super thin, and it shows in the cutting. You have amazing cutting geometry, whether you're doing push cuts, if you're just any type of cuts, slicing, whatever, it cuts really well. The blade stock isn't really thick, it's just an average thickness, but the way it's ground, it tapers down to the tip, so it's nice and thin from this point forward, which is basically where the materials are going to slide through. So the whole front end of the knife is so thin, and the geometry is done so good right here. And since it's a full flat grind, I mean, this thing just flies through stuff. I mean, amazing geometry. Couldn't ask for better for this size knife. Now, when going into the utility cuts, you know, the downward tip, it doesn't go very far down. So you do have to lift it up a bit to get to the tip. Not so much to where you run out of leverage. So you're still going to have decent leverage, but it's also not to the point to where, you know, I would call it a beast in utility cutting. You know, it's not going to be the most amazing utility cutter. However, it will get you by just fine. And because the tip is so fine and gets so thin, it works just fine. It works really good. And you can technically use a little bit of the belly and let the material pull right into the belly for your draw cuts, your utility cuts and stuff. Now, for the size of the knife with the geometry, it winds up working out really good because it's not a really big knife. So, I mean, to like open up a box to go around all the sides, it's real easy to manipulate this knife in all directions very quickly in your hand without even thinking about it, which is really nice for just a basic EDC knife, because basic EDC knives are used for opening stuff up, breaking down cardboard. So like all the general EDC stuff, this thing's going to do very, very, very well. Now, the action. This action, man. So before we really talk about it, let's look at the way the detent system works. So it's got two detent balls in there. It's got two detent balls inside here. So the two detent balls right there are also the lock face. So if you look in here, I don't want to hit the flashlight, but if you look in here, you can see the detent is going to come around right there. There's one of them. And then you see the first one coming through right there. Let me turn it around. You see the two detent holes right there. Then the balls drop in. Now when I open it up, you can see, if it'll focus, they act as the lock face. Hopefully you could see that. And you can see that the pivot is polished. You know, you can see that as I'm pulling it around. So that double detent system equals a very heavy detent. And it feels different than what you'd expect. It's heavy. I don't want to even say it's strong. It's heavy, which I like, because you get the resistance that you want when you go to open it up. Like when you put your finger in here and you start putting pressure, you actually build pressure, and then it just takes over. Once that detent breaks, there's no stopping the blade, because you have to put in so much pressure. And I'm not saying it's too much. Like, that's why I'm not calling it strong, because it's just heavy, which is a nice heavy feeling that is very addictive. And it has a great sound. The acoustics are amazing, amazing. And yeah, this hole is so easy to access. I mean, when you hold it in your hand, it's just natural. That's where your finger lands. So, and then on top of that, once it opens up, your fingers are right into place. If it's such a comfortable flicker, this definitely has some of the best, if not the best. I'll just call it right now. It has the best reverse flicking action a knife has, especially for its size. It just, with everything else put together, this has the best reverse flicking action. Now the thumb flick is also really good. It's just a little awkward because you kind of got to like fight your finger up in this corner because you got this little corner right here in the way, but you can break it if you just put a little pressure inside there, then flick. So it's not bad. Not bad at all. It actually works really good. It's not no thumb stud, but it works really good. But the primary way to flick it is a reverse flick, and it works so good. Now, when you unlock it, because the detent is those two balls, it's basically like it's right there as soon as you unlock it. Like you'd have no room. So once you unlock it, you're basically, once you get on top of the detent balls, which is so early, it's immediately you're past the detent balls because they're right there. They're so early. I tend to let it just drop down to my finger and then let it continue. But very addicting. Now, the lock bar. The lock bar access, it's basically lined up. There's really no access, but he chamfers both sides, right here and on this inside. So I find myself just pushing, just going right around the front. You can slow roll it, but you want to keep your finger off the lock bar, then break the detent and then roll it. A lot of times I just pinch it, pop it, then finish it off. Now, the pivot, though, it is on ceramic bearings, the double ceramic detent balls. I just figured I'd mention that. The stop pin is an okay size. I prefer it to be a little bit bigger, but it's not bad. We'll talk about that a little bit more here in a second. Nice big T8 hardware all the way around. Love that. We have a proprietary pivot over travel stop, so you're not going to unspring the lock. The lock in, or the over travel stop insert is screwed in here, and the double detent system is also in that little just like a steel lock bar insert, except for it has the two ceramic detent balls, and it's screwed in from the inside. Heavy milling. So it's extremely light. This thing is so light, it almost feels fragile, but it's not. I mean, it's very solid. I just mean it's extremely light. You don't expect it to be this light. The balance is really, at least, I mean, I don't know. I guess the balance is kind of centered. A lot of people like it to be right here, but it's not bad, but it feels well balanced in the hand, like when you just have it like this, because you don't have to worry about the blade being too heavy and it flipping. You feel very natural with the knife. The clip is amazing. Another amazing feature. We're going to get to some negatives, but the clip works great in and out of the pocket. It slips over the seam of your pants very comfortably, pulls out very comfortably. It was definitely well thought out. It was definitely tried and tested lots of times to make sure it worked really good. And it does. It works fantastic. Let's talk about a few negative things before I get into a few more things I want to talk about with this knife. So one negative thing is, let's take a look at this choil really quick. Now, I'm usually a little bit more forgiving about choils from custom knives and stuff. But I just want to speak about it. So we see the plunge grind. It starts here, and it seems like it ends right here, right? And it seems like they left you some life. But really, it's not. The thickness just tapers all the way down to right before the edge. So you're going to be able to get, I mean, I could probably get a few sharpenings out of it as long as I kept the same angle that's on it. And we're going to talk about the steel here in a second, but as long as I kept the same angle on it, I could probably get a couple good sharpenings out of it. But if you wanted to lay back the edge or anything, you're going to, once you get past a certain amount of steel, you're going to start getting a smile, okay? Because you see how it tapers down. It doesn't just dramatically drop down to the thickness, and it's a pretty long taper down to the edge. I would have liked to have seen the plunge grind start here and end right there, and then just leave all of this life to sharpen from it. So next thing, Next thing is proprietary hardware. So we do have a proprietary pivot. Now you can do something like this. This is what I do for like pivots like this. I get like a little thing of random bits. So with this one, we can take this one right here. Now it's not gonna just work straight across, but like if you look, what I can do is I can go this way, so I'm not directly straight across. It won't work, but I can go from right here and make it work. This pivot has loosened up a few times. I'm gonna take it out and blue Loctite it before I send it back to him. That way it'll cure in the process of mail. But yeah, it's you hate. I mean, it's that this is a pretty easy to get. But what if you can't find one and then matching it up? It's just nice. Just do a T10 pivot. That would be very nice instead of this proprietary hardware. I'll be honest though, I do like the way it looks. I like the 6-gun pivot type thing. I do like it. It does look good, but it does become frustrating to people when they buy it. The pivot loosens up. They need to tighten it, and they have to do it with their finger, and then it keeps coming apart. And they got to take it apart, put some blue Loctite on it, and they can't get it tight all the way. So without buying something or figuring it out, and it might be more difficult for you to find something. Now, next thing. Now, this one is not really a complaint, but I'm going to bring it up anyways. This thing is ultra, ultra light. I mean, stupid light for a titanium frame lock. Like, you see all the milling out of it, and that's deep, deep milling. Like, I can't imagine it would take much to puncture through this. I can't imagine there's much titanium left in there before you hit the other side. You can see how deep that is. So, but where I'm going with this is that I can't imagine the carbon fiber versions must be so light that maybe too light. Sometimes I think we're trying to get knives so light that, and I understand heavy doesn't mean quality, neither does light. I understand that. But there is a range, there is a level of feeling of a tool, of build quality, of all of that, where you get something in your hand and it feels like a piece of paper. You don't feel like it's going to be strong. You don't feel like it's going to be able to withstand abuse over 20 years, right? And I'm not saying it can't. I'm just saying, like, I haven't tried any of the carbon fiber versions or anything like that, but I'm just imagining that, man, they must be so light that it might almost be problematic, but I don't know. Next thing, I talked about the stop pin. The stop pin's a fine size. It's just a regular size stop pin. It's regular. I'm not saying it's bad. There's nothing wrong with this stop pin. However, for this knife, I would have liked to have seen just a little bit bigger of one. It's nice seeing a good size stop pin. I'm not saying much bigger than this, but just a little bit beefier. I would feel like, and I hate using that word, but it would just seem to be appropriate for this price of knife and everything else. Now, talking about the stop pin on the close, it stops right there in the middle, so he did leave you plenty of room to put in a choil of your own in the future, or if something happened and you did take all this steel away and you didn't want to leave a smile, you could you'd be just fine, because it's the stop pin's right there, so you have plenty of room to manipulate it or to take away some steel and fix the plunge grind. Next thing, availability is not great, which I understand. I mean, it's not going to be easy to get. They are difficult to get. Buying them on the secondary they are overpriced. I do agree that they are overpriced. Now, I'm not telling you not to buy it. If somebody offers you a deal and you like it that much and you want to get it, and it means that much, get it, man. But the secondary prices are ridiculous, and I think a lot of people would agree with that. But the regular price that you buy these at is not. So, it's just getting on the books or getting them when they're available. It's not it's going to be difficult for people to get them. Now, obviously, you still have a chance. Lavender Pants was able to get 2 of them. So it's still possible. It's obviously very, very possible. So, and sometimes the best knives out there are the ones that are going to be a little bit more difficult to get. The steel. Let's go into the steel. That was all the negatives. There's really nothing wrong here. This thing is so good. You know, you have to literally reach for nitpicks to find something. So the steel on this Z-Finite. Now, I did not sharpen this, but I did tune it. And I tuned it because, you know, Pants got this one as a user. So his other one is kind of like his safe queen. This one's more of a user. So, you know, it did come, you know, with a little bit of, not edge damage, but, you know, use. Let's say that use. So I personally would sharpen it at this point. However, I don't think he should, because I honed it and the edge came right back, which is really nice. There's no nicks, maybe a tiny, tiny bit right there. I probably did 10 passes per side twice on the hone, and it did bring it back nice and sticky. Then I stropped it. So it still has the factory edge on there, just honed. And it's very sharp. I mean, it'll cut through receipt paper, no problem. It'll cut through phone book paper, no problem. So that's plenty sharp when you can cut through cleanly through phone book paper. So in my opinion, there's no reason to sharpen this yet. Just to remove steel, just to have, you know, a little bit sharper of an edge. Now, I will say that it's gonna go duller quicker, for sure. But when it gets to that point, you know, and if he wants to, he always knows he can send it to me, and I have no problem putting the same angle and everything on this, where it just looks like it's just like now, you know, basically it'll just look like a factory edge. I could easily do that with this, especially as thin as it is. This thing would take minutes for me to sharpen. That's the beauty of a nice thin edge. Next thing, you know, or going on to the next thing, you know, I like this thing a lot. It's so nice. The detent it's hard to beat. It's very, very hard to beat a detent like this. And I know this video's went on a little too long, but I get it. I get why people like these so much. I can understand it, and it makes sense. That's the one thing I really appreciate about this, is how much it makes sense. The blade matches the handle, the ergos matches the geometry, the clip works good. Yes, I would prefer just a tiny bit better choil, but it's really not that bad. It's really fine. The choil's fine. You're going to get a few good sharpenings out of it. Most likely. But there's just so many great things here that it's put together well, and it's definitely well thought out, and, you know, definitely a very nice little reliable knife. It's not a big knife. It's, you know, if I was going to do a size comparison with it, I know a lot of people know the size of this by now, but here is the Urban EDC Supplies F5.5. They're basically the same size. This is also another knife of Lavender Pants's. And you can see they're basically the same size. Another knife, here's a knife a lot of people know, the Delica. It's basically a Delica size. I mean, which is a great EDC size knife. It's actually right there. Yeah. Holy cow. Yeah, it's basically a Delica size, which is a fantastic EDC knife size. You know, it's not a work knife. It's good enough to be a secondary or a primary. It's in that happy medium range. And man, I like it a lot. There you guys go. I love you guys. Thanks for watching. Peace.